Hello guys, Crispy here and welcome back to another video. In this one, my friends, I'm going to be testing the GeForce RTX 3060 Ti in Man Remastered. This one is the Founders Edition version of the card, and I am running it with the latest Nvidia drivers. As usual, 516.94 at the time of recording this video. These drivers are actually optimized for this game. You can see that we're not overclocking it, and you can check out all of its specs here in Tech Power-Up's GPU-Z. This is an 8GB GDDR6 GPU, released back in 2020. Over on the left, we're pairing it with a Ryzen 9 5900X and 32GB of RAM. The CPU is a bit overkill for a 3060 Ti, but you should get around the same FPS if you pair it with like a Ryzen 7 5800X or maybe even the Ryzen 5 5600X or an i5 12400F, for example. I think that shouldn't bottleneck this card, but this game is super CPU intensive. But let's get right into it, shall we? Let's go over the settings now. I'm playing at 1080p resolution, and we're also going to test this one at 1440p, 4K, and 8K, just for a little bit, you know, and just for fun. This is obviously not an 8K card. Right now, we're not using any upscaling, and over in the graphics settings, we're utilizing the very high settings preset. I hear that HBAO Plus is actually bugged here in this game right now, so we will actually utilize SSAO instead. Alright, we're seeing very nice FPS. This is buttery smooth right now. Wow! That is crazy. I mean, especially after playing with a GT 1030 earlier today, this is gorgeous. It is beautiful. It's running very well. It is very jaggy, by the way, very shimmery, yes, but that's because I forgot to enable the anti-aliasing, so let's do that. There we go. TAA is the way to go, I think, in this game. It looks pretty good, and let's restart counting our FPS. Let's do this. Now it's looking fantastic for sure. Of course, we don't have ray tracing enabled, so reflections aren't really that impressive. They still look okay. They're passable, I guess, if you're not really licking the windows and stuff like that. Ray tracing in this game makes a huge difference, and we will definitely utilize it a little bit later. As you can see, by the way, by the GPU utilization, we're not fully GPU bound here in this game. This is a super CPU intensive title, as I told you in the intro, and you will need a beefy CPU to achieve these frame rates that we're seeing right here. I think the Ryzen 5 5600X again, or the Ryzen 7 5800X should be capable of achieving these FPS, going by the CPU utilizations that we're seeing in this game, and, well, the single core performance, which is the same as the 5900X. Anyway, it is buttery smooth. I haven't seen a single stutter yet. That's incredible, actually. Wow, it's a breath of fresh air, as I told you, with the 3080 Ti. Games without stuttering these days are very, very rare, unfortunately. And I guess if you have a 1080p monitor with a 3060 Ti, this is just an incredible experience, guys. I actually recommend a 1440p monitor, usually, if you're running this card, or like a 3070 as well. Yeah, I actually used the 3060 Ti as my main GPU for a while. Oh, hello, pigeons. And I really enjoyed it at 1440p. It played all of my games absolutely fine. Even though it's not like 144 frames per second in all of the games, it still delivers a buttery smooth experience, and I think 1440p is far superior to 1080p. You can see that this area is actually more GPU intensive. The GPU is packed at 98% usage there, with 69 degrees Celsius. That is beautiful. So now let's test out some DLSS here on quality. In most cases, it doesn't really make a difference because we weren't seeing full GPU utilization, and you're gonna see exactly the same FPS if you enable DLSS in those scenarios. But here, it actually does make a little bit of a difference because GPU is maxed out, and it still is with DLSS. So I'm only gonna test it out around this area for now. We're seeing like 140s. I don't think we saw that previously at native resolution. So DLSS helps it a little bit here at 1080p. It's not like the 3080 Ti where it doesn't make a difference whatsoever. But overall, the experience is quite similar. Okay, I bumped it up to 1440p and disabled DLSS now. And at this resolution, DLSS should make a bigger difference because we're seeing full GPU usage even around the city area. Look at this. This is just, it's gorgeous, guys. The difference from 1080p to 1440p is insane, basically. The details are so much more pronounced. here at this resolution. You do get way less FPS, yes. It's not very high refresh rate like it was before, like 130, 140 on average, but it's still buttery smooth, guys. Aside from that slight issue with the frame time graph right there, which is not really noticeable, honestly, guys. I can't really notice any stuttering, although the frame time is a bit weird there and inconsistent. But I think this is the way to go with a card like this. Maybe enable some DLSS if it makes it look a little bit sharper and if you like the look, because you don't really lose any quality if you do so. And it's beautiful like this. It's so smooth and it's so beautiful. And definitely a beautiful game to test in these videos, and I can't wait to test way more GPUs on it. So stay tuned in if I haven't tested your GPU yet, of course, because I will probably do that. Let's go down there actually, because sometimes it is more intensive around here in the streets, but not the case here with the 3060 Ti. It's pretty much the same thing. Maybe the frame times are slightly more consistent because we're not moving really fast through the city, you know, so it doesn't have to render everything at full speed. Well, it's very solid, really nice here at 1440p. Let's go here, okay, in this park area we got more vegetation, so FPS dropped by a little bit. We should definitely go to the other bigger park. Wow, what the look at those reflections. They actually look quite nice, don't they? But they're not accurate, because there is a huge building right here, which is not being reflected. That's the thing, ray tracing will make a huge difference, because you will see real-time reflections, and they look really good here in this game as well. And we are finally here. Okay, getting down into the 70s at times. Look at that. Oh boy, this is really intensive around here. Okay, but it doesn't drop from 70 FPS, and that's absolutely more than enough to play a single-player title like this one absolutely perfectly, basically. So we just applied DLSS quality. We gained about 20 frames per second because we were seeing like 106 here. More than 20 actually, so that's a good bump up in performance, and it looks almost the same. I can see it's a little bit more over sharpened, but now we are getting what, like 10 more FPS or so, 9 to 10 more frames per second while looking at all of the trees from above, which is pretty nice, actually. It's a little bump up in performance and smoothness. I'm forgetting to test ray tracing, so we're gonna have to do that at the end of the video. But let's go up to 4K resolution. I'm gonna disable the TAA here, the anti-aliasing, at this res, because I don't really need it. 2160p, very high settings still. Let's see how it looks. That is gorgeous. Okay, and it's still around 60 frames per second with the 3060 Ti. That's actually really good, guys. The very high settings are the maximum settings in this game. So it's like playing on ultra settings, the latest Spider-Man game on PC, on 3060 Ti at 4K, and it's playable. It's very playable. Look at this, getting even higher FPS around here, 70s. Frame time, again, is not completely perfect, but you know, lock the FPS and it will probably be very smooth. And around here in the grassy and the vegetation areas, it gets, well, 50s, but honestly, guys, even 40s, look at that. I think it's playable still, and it's super enjoyable. I would definitely enable some DLSS to smooth it out a little bit at this resolution, but I can't deny this is amazing for a 3060 Ti. And you know what? Some things are actually a little bit fuzzy still, like that sign over there. I can see a lot of shimmering, so you might want to enable some TAA, maybe. Good thing is TAA is not really all that intensive, so you can still get pretty good FPS with that setting enabled. But outside of there, like in these trees, for example, look gorgeous at 4K resolution. And the compression on YouTube will definitely not make it justice, but believe me, this is incredible to look at. Alright, so let's stop it there. I told you I would probably enable DLSS here at 4K, so that's what we're gonna do now. Let's do it on quality, apply, okay, and ooh, we're getting 60s now, 69, beautiful stuff. It's perfect, guys. And now DLSS also applies some anti-aliasing. Oh, it's dropping pretty much the same as it did before, so... Oh, 30s now. Yeah, that is not good. I've seen that in this game, the upscaling technologies don't really do much, unfortunately. I will actually try to restart the game. Okay, so something weird was definitely going on. I think this game has a problem with VRAM allocation. And it loaded some of the textures at 4K, very high settings, into the RAM, and it wasn't really swapping them back to VRAM whenever I enabled DLSS. That's why the VRAM usage was actually lower than it is right now, and we were seeing less FPS. That's something that they need to iron out, I think. Yeah, they definitely need some patches. As you can see, it's still the same settings here, very high quality DLSS, and now we are actually seeing a ton of more FPS. Wow, what a difference that makes the restart. You know, that's crazy. Whenever you run out of VRAM, you definitely need to restart this game to apply the DLSS. Didn't know that. I didn't know that. I just saw a comment mentioning that. And yeah, that's apparently what you need to do. It's so smooth. It's not dropping from 60 frames. And it is sharp as heck. It's actually looking better than the native 4K resolution just because of that extra anti-aliasing that is applied whenever you use DLSS. Wow, just insane. You can actually play at 4K, guys, with a 3060 Ti. Absolutely fine. That's crazy. Even if you have a high refresh rate monitor, you should probably try to play this game at 4K, because you're gonna appreciate all of that detail. It's amazing. It's an amazing game in terms of detail. Look at this. All of the NPCs are here. They're all different, I think. I'm not seeing any repeated one, I guess. But yeah, there is tons and tons of detail here. And whenever you are seeing everything from above, they are still there. You can see it. You can see all of the NPCs in the park. Actually, they're all stopped there for some reason. But you can see it, you know. It is beautiful. It is awesome. Look at that. Not dropping from 60 FPS, guys. It is not dropping from 60 FPS. What the hell? I'm actually curious. Let's drop it down to 1440p. I think DLSS applied properly at 1440p, but I can't really be 100% sure without trying it. So, were these the FPS that we were seeing? I don't think so, right? This is a little bit better, for sure. Wow. Alright. That's incredible. Okay, no, it's dropping to around the same FPS as it did at 1440p with DLSS, but... Oh my gosh, I think it is actually getting a little bit higher frames. Ah, this is amazing. This is perfect. Wow. So good. We're actually CPU bound at times, guys. GPU usage goes down by a little bit. And also, a lot of people don't get this, but you don't need 100% CPU utilization to be CPU bound in a game. If the game can't utilize all of the cores, it will still be CPU bound at 40% usage, for example. And that's what we're seeing right here. If we had like a 12900K or 12700K, it would be a little bit faster and it would get us a little bit more FPS. But this is already perfect anyways, guys. So, wow. Let me know what kind of FPS you're seeing with like a Ryzen 550 600X. I'm actually curious about that. You can see a little trail behind pigeons at the distance, by the way, with DLSS. So it's not completely perfect, but it is pretty damn close. I'm gonna go down to 1080p resolution now and enable some ray tracing on very high, maybe. Yeah, let's keep it on very high, I guess. And DLSS is still enabled, by the way. I really recommend you to use DLSS whenever testing ray tracing or playing with ray tracing, not testing. Well, all I do is testing the game, but you guys are probably gonna play it properly, right? Alright, you can see that the reflections here at 1080p aren't anything special. They're very noisy with DLSS. I'm curious to see it without DLSS, actually. Wait a second. Here we go. Turn that off. It's still very noisy as well. Somebody told me that the reflections were only noisy because of DLSS. Well, that's not really the case. You can still play it at 1080p native res, by the way, with ray tracing. It's gonna get around the same FPS as 4K resolution. which is interesting. All right, I just enabled it again. Look at that CPU utilization now with ray tracing. It's actually going over 50 and 60% usage at times, and this is a 24 threads CPU. Now let's go to 1440p DLSS quality using the very high settings and very high ray tracing. And now we're seeing around the same FPS, but we're not CPU bottlenecked anymore. So maybe if we can get like 60 plus at all times at these settings, it will be the best experience here in Spider-Man Remastered, because RT looks amazing. This is probably not supposed to be blinking that much, by the way. It's probably DLSS once again, but it's not really that distracting. I think it will drop from 60 frames per second though, so yeah, maybe playing at high settings, for example, with RT is a little bit better of an option. I don't know. Let's do this. 60s. 60 is still very nice here in this game for sure. Wow, I want to go to the park. There's something really satisfying about just swinging around the city, you know, and seeing the beautiful graphics. It's awesome. It's really awesome. We're now actually reflecting the building that's behind us, and everything is accurate. We're even reflecting ourselves there. Well, we are not. The game is. But yeah, that makes a little bit of a difference. Okay, we're approaching the big park right here, and it's not really dropping, but it already did drop, by the way, whenever we were seeing the park's reflection in that huge building there, made of glass. So, yeah. Now, thankfully, there aren't really many ray-traced reflections around here, so FPS are actually quite nice. That is great. Look at that. Oh, the reflections of the trees aren't ray-traced. They actually disappeared off screen. Okay, interesting. Look at this, by the way. Down in the streets, it drops by a lot. 50s, even 40s probably. Yeah, look at that. 48. Okay, so it's not perfect, but I mean, the ray tracing does look beautiful. 3840 by 2160 DLSS quality, ray tracing, and apparently we are running out of VRAM there. But it's at 6 gigabytes, which is weird, so I'm actually gonna have to restart the game. This is really freaking weird, the behavior of this game. Okay, okay, alright. I just restarted the game, and now we're getting 47 FPS minimum here, on top of the world, basically. This is great. Just gonna show you the settings. 4K, quality DLSS, a very high ray tracing and everything. I mean, how is it performing so well? Probably down there it will perform worse, right? Let's see. Isn't it getting the same... No, it's a little bit lower than previously. Yeah, okay, there we go. It drops into the 30s. All right. I was seeing like, what? 1440p is almost the same as this? How is it even possible? No, it's not. Okay, this drops into the 30s. It's still decent for a 30 FPS experience, but... I mean, dropping the FPS that far for a last-gen console experience, I don't know if I would do that, guys, just for ray tracing. I think you should probably disable it here if you're playing at 4K res, guys. But if you're playing at 1440p or 1080p, it's a pretty nice option. Yes, let's drop down here, actually, to see the FPS. It's getting lower 40s at times. Not bad by any means. It's really, really nice, guys. I mean, it doesn't drop from 30 FPS. It's still very playable. It's actually incredible that a 3060 Ti can do this. Because this is definitely not a card meant for 4K gaming, and yet it is playing this game. A super gorgeous one. With ray tracing above 30 frames per second at all times. It is using DLSS quality, yes, but it looks the same as native resolution, so why the heck not use it, right? Wow, that's incredible. Right, 7680 by 4320 is now the resolution, but we're using DLSS set to performance, because otherwise it's gonna be terrible. High settings preset instead of very high with no ray tracing. Let's see if it's borderline playable or not. Oh no. The VRAM is not enough, probably. It's getting 6 frames here. Oh, it's doing something. Oh boy, what is this? Holy crap! Alright, that's a first. We are just a little cube there at the bottom of the screen. That is so weird. It's like we're using a mod or something. Oh boy, that is okay. Okay, guys. It doesn't have enough VRAM to load everything, and apparently it preferred to load everything else aside from the character. Ah, that is so interesting. Beautiful stuff. It's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? Anyway, this is definitely only for science, obviously. And the science tells me that we should not do this anymore, and we should probably leave it right there. For example, on the 3080 Ti, it was actually playable at 60 FPS using these settings. So those 4 extra gigabytes of VRAM definitely make a huge difference. I can't do this anymore. It's getting single digits and we are a little cube. Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back very soon with another one, and I love you all. Bye-bye.